Lauren smirked, twirling the deep red wine in her glass, her manicured fingers wrapped delicately around the stem. She leaned back into the plush sofa, the soft glow of the chandelier catching the mischievous gleam in her eyes. I just think we deserve to explore, she purred, tilting her head slightly, her lips curving into a satisfied smile. You know, open things up, have some fun. Mark sat across from her, his expression unreadable, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface. He didn't react the way she had expected. No shock, no anger, not even a flicker of hesitation. Instead, he took a measured sip of his whiskey and nodded. You're absolutely right. Lauren blinked. For a brief moment, her composure faltered, her perfectly rehearsed speech derailed by his immediate agreement. Wait, really? Mark smiled, calm, collected, impenetrable. Of course. Lauren's mind raced. She had braced herself for a fight, a pleading, a negotiation. She had imagined having to explain, to convince him that this was the new modern way of marriage, that monogamy was just an outdated construct. She had been prepared to remind him that their spark had dimmed, that they could keep their bond intact while also indulging in the excitement of others, but she hadn't been prepared for this. She studied him closely. Was this some kind of trick? A trap? A test? She let out a small, breathy laugh and set her glass down. Well, she said, masking her uncertainty with a smirk. I'm glad you see it that way. I was worried you might be, traditional about it. Mark tilted his head slightly, amusement flickering in his deep-set eyes. Why would I be? You deserve to be happy, Lauren. We both do. She exhaled, relieved. She had won. This was going to be easier than she thought. Mark finished his drink and set the glass down with deliberate ease. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, his gaze locked onto hers. So, he said smoothly, when were you planning to start? Lauren hesitated, caught off guard by his directness. I mean, no rush. We can ease into it. Maybe see other people casually at first. I see, Mark interrupted, standing up. That makes sense. His agreement was throwing her off balance. She'd been so sure he'd protest, maybe get jealous or defensive. That was, after all, how these things were supposed to go. But instead, he was just accepting it. She watched him walk to the kitchen, refill his glass, and turn back to her with that same composed, unreadable expression. And I assume you already have someone in mind. Lauren felt a small pang of guilt, but quickly buried it. Mark, she said, rolling her eyes with a coy smile, this isn't about someone else. It's about us, about experiencing life, about not feeling trapped. Mark chuckled. Of course. She frowned. Why did it feel like he was leading her into something? He walked past her, pausing only to press a light kiss to her forehead before heading upstairs. Enjoy your night, he said simply. Lauren stared after him, her victory suddenly feeling hollow. But she shook it off. This was just new to him. He'd adjust. And if not, well, that was his problem, wasn't it? She finished the rest of her wine in one long sip, savoring the taste of freedom on her tongue. Tomorrow, everything would begin. She had no idea just how right she was. Lauren woke the next morning feeling refreshed, stretching lazily beneath the silky sheets. Sunlight streamed through the curtains, casting a golden glow across the room. She smiled to herself, remembering the previous night's conversation with Mark. He had taken the news well, better than she had expected. No anger, no arguments, no begging, just calm acceptance. In some ways, that was even better than a fight. A fight would have meant tension, resentment, and compromise. But this meant she had won. She reached for her phone, flipping through her messages with a small smirk. A few unread texts sat waiting for her, one from Jason, the man she had been subtly entertaining the idea of seeing once she got Mark's approval. Good morning, gorgeous. Any updates? Lauren's smirk deepened. She had hinted at changes coming, at new possibilities. Now, it was just a matter of setting things in motion. Slipping out of bed, she threw on a satin robe and padded downstairs, expecting to see Mark already at the kitchen counter with his morning coffee, but the kitchen was empty. The scent of brewed espresso lingered in the air, the only sign that he had already been there. Her eyes flicked toward the counter. A single white envelope sat propped up against a fruit bowl. Frowning, she stepped forward, her fingers brushing over the paper. Mark's handwriting was unmistakable, bold, and deliberate. Explore all you want, just not in my house. Her breath hitched. She read the note again, slower this time, as if the words might change. Her chest tightened. This wasn't what she had expected. Her gaze darted toward the door. Something felt off. Her heart pounded as she hurried to the front entrance, gripping the handle and twisting. Confusion knotted her brow. They never locked the door in the morning. She turned, scanning the room more carefully. That was when she saw it. Her suitcases, neatly packed, sitting by the door like a silent declaration. Lauren's breath came in shallow gasps. The realization hit her like a slap to the face. Mark wasn't agreeing he was leaving. No, not just leaving. He had already left. A sharp sting of betrayal cut through her, quickly followed by anger. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She had laid out the terms. She had given him an option that should have kept them both happy. How dare he? She grabbed her phone, dialing his number with trembling fingers. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. A cold chill spread through her limbs. She tried again. Same message. She was locked out of their home, cut off. Her credit card, was it still active? Her bank account, did she still have access? She ran to her laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard. She logged into their shared account, only to find that Mark had already separated their finances. His name was gone. Everything tied to him had vanished. Her stomach twisted. This wasn't a discussion. This wasn't a transition. This was the end, and she never even saw it coming. Lauren stood frozen in the middle of the living room, her pulse hammering in her ears. The room felt unfamiliar, like a place she no longer belonged. The house she had once decorated to her exact taste, the sleek modern furniture, the expensive rugs, the warm neutral tones, now felt cold, hostile, unwelcoming. She blinked rapidly, her mind racing to make sense of the situation. Mark was gone. The man who had stood by her side for over a decade, who had provided for her, who had always been so predictable in his patience and quiet devotion, had walked away. No, not walked, he had disappeared. Her hands trembled as she snatched up her phone again, scrolling through her contacts. She dialed his number once more, hoping that the previous message had been some kind of mistake, a technical issue. The number you have dialed is no longer in service. She swore under her breath and tried his work phone. Nothing. Her heart pounded harder as she flipped to her banking app, logging in with a sense of urgency that bordered on panic. The loading screen seemed to stretch forever, taunting her. Then the numbers appeared, and she felt the ground tilt beneath her feet. Her personal account was untouched, but the shared account, the one Mark had always managed, empty, cleared out, closed. Her mouth went dry. Lauren's mind spun, grasping at straws, trying to rationalize what was happening. He wouldn't just do this. He was Mark. He was supposed to sulk, maybe brood for a day or two, but he was never the type to make drastic decisions. He wasn't the type to act, so she darted to the front door and yanked it open, stepping onto the porch, the cool morning air slapping her awake. Her suitcases sat neatly beside the welcome mat, an insult wrapped in politeness. The realization settled deeper into her bones. Mark hadn't just left. He had removed her. She turned and bolted back inside, heading straight for the bedroom, flinging open the closet doors. His side? Empty. His shirts, his ties, his perfectly polished dress shoes, all gone. The watch she had gifted him on their anniversary, the cologne she always teased him about wearing too much of, even the small framed photo of them from their honeymoon. Missing. She stumbled back a step, gripping the doorframe to steady herself. This wasn't just some tantrum. This wasn't some petty act of revenge. Mark had made his decision, and he had made it completely. Lauren inhaled sharply, fighting back the rising panic. She refused to let this shake her. No. This was fixable. She stormed back downstairs, grabbed her phone, and scrolled to her friend Monica's number. If anyone could help her make sense of this insanity, it was Monica. The call rang twice before Monica picked up. Lauren, hey, what's up? Lauren wasted no time. Mark left, she snapped. Like, left. He packed his stuff, locked me out of the house, shut down our shared accounts. He's gone. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before Monica exhaled. Yeah, I heard. Lauren's stomach dropped. You heard? What the hell does that mean? Monica hesitated, and Lauren's patience wore thin. Monica, what do you know? Her friend sighed. Lauren, Mark didn't just decide this overnight. He's been planning this for a while. Lauren felt like she'd been punched in the gut. That's impossible. He agreed to the open marriage. He agreed. Why would he? Lauren, Monica cut in, her voice uncharacteristically firm. He didn't agree. He let you think you won, but he was never going to play along. He was done the moment you said you wanted an open marriage. He just didn't tell you. Lauren's mouth opened, but no words came out. He called me last week, Monica continued, asked me for recommendations on moving companies, wanted to know about lawyers. He said he was done, Lauren, that he wasn't going to fight you or argue, that he was just going to walk. Lauren felt like the floor had been ripped out from under her. I thought you knew, Monica added softly. Knew? How the hell was she supposed to know? Mark never showed his hand, never raised his voice, never acted like a man on the verge of leaving. Lauren gripped the edge of the counter, her nails digging into the marble. And none of you thought to warn me? Monica sighed. Lauren, what did you expect? You wanted freedom, you got it. Lauren's breath hitched. I thought he'd... What? Monica challenged. Let you have your cake and eat it too? Let you explore while he waited at home like a loyal puppy? Come on, Lauren. Mark may be quiet, but he's not stupid. Lauren's head pounded, the weight of reality crushing down on her. Mark had outplayed her. She had pushed, assuming he would bend, assuming he would stay. Instead, he had left her standing in an empty house, holding the consequences of her own choices. And for the first time, she realized she had underestimated him completely. Lauren sat on the couch, motionless, her phone still gripped tightly in her hand. The silence of the house pressed in around her, unfamiliar, suffocating. This had to be a dream, a bizarre, elaborate nightmare that she would wake up from at any moment. Any second now, Mark would walk through the door, shake his head, and call her dramatic. He'd tell her she was overreacting, that she'd misunderstood everything, but he wouldn't, because he was gone, and he wasn't coming back. She swallowed hard, forcing herself to think there had to be a way to fix this. Mark was a reasonable man. If she could just talk to him, if she could explain that she hadn't meant to push him away, maybe he'd reconsider. Lauren scrolled through her phone, tapping on the contact of Mark's closest friend, Daniel. If anyone knew where he was, it would be him. The line rang 3 times before Daniel's deep voice answered. Lauren! She exhaled sharply. Daniel, thank God. Listen, I need to talk to Mark. Do you know where he is? A long silence stretched on the other end. Then Daniel sighed. Lauren, don't do this. Her jaw tightened. Don't do what? I just want to talk to my husband. He's not your husband anymore, Daniel said. His tone edged with something between pity and finality. Lauren flinched. That's ridiculous. We're still married. Legally, sure. But in every way that matters? No, you're not. Her fingers curled into a fist. Daniel, where is he? Another silence. Then finally he spoke. He's staying with me. Lauren's breath hitched. Then put him on the phone. Doesn't want to talk to you. She shot up from the couch, pacing the length of the living room. It's not for you to decide. No, Lauren. That's for Mark to decide, and he already has. Her throat tightened. I don't understand why everyone's acting like this is so final. People fight. People say things they don't mean. He needs time to cool off. Daniel sighed again, the kind of sigh someone gives when they've already explained something too many times. Lauren, this wasn't some spur-of-the-moment decision. He planned this. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he's done. Lauren let out a bitter laugh. You're all acting like I cheated on him. Daniel hesitated. Then he said, you didn't need to. The words landed like a punch to the gut. She swallowed, her voice suddenly hoarse. What's that supposed to mean? It means Mark saw this for what it was. You weren't asking for an open marriage, Lauren. You were asking for permission to cheat while keeping all the benefits of being his wife. You wanted security, loyalty, and freedom. All at the same time, and Mark wasn't willing to play that game. Lauren's pulse pounded in her ears. That's not fair. I wanted us both to explore. Daniel let out a dry chuckle. You and I both know that's bullshit. You already had someone lined up, didn't you? She clenched her teeth, heat rising to her face. That's none of your business. No, but it was Mark's, Daniel said sharply, and instead of lying to himself, instead of fighting for someone who had already checked out, he walked away. Lauren's vision blurred as she sank back onto the couch. I thought he'd be open to it. Daniel's voice softened. No, Lauren, you thought he'd tolerate it. The words stung in a way she hadn't expected. Mark had always been calm, rational, steady. He was the kind of man who fixed things, who endured. She had counted on that. She had assumed that no matter what she did, no matter how far she pushed, he would stay. And that had been her biggest mistake. Lauren inhaled shakily. So what now? Now, Danielle said, now. Mark moves on. And you deal with the consequences of your choices. Tears pricked at her eyes. That's it. That's it. Lauren stared blankly at the coffee table, Daniel's words echoing in her mind. She had played the game thinking she held all the cards. But Mark had flipped the table over and walked away. And now, for the first time, she realized she had nothing left to bargain with. Lauren sat in the now eerily silent house, the weight of reality pressing down on her. Just yesterday, she had felt powerful, confident, in control. She had imagined a future where she had the best of both worlds, the security of Mark's unwavering loyalty and the excitement of something new. But that future had shattered like glass. She reached for her wine glass, only to realize it was empty. Frustration bubbled inside her as she slammed it onto the coffee table, the sharp sound echoing through the emptiness. This wasn't how things were supposed to go. She had expected Mark to hesitate, to bargain, to fight for her, but instead he had walked away. No yelling, no pleading, no last-minute attempts to win her back. He had given her exactly what she wanted: freedom. And yet, she had never felt more trapped. Her phone buzzed on the couch beside her. Hope surged through her chest as she snatched it up, but when she saw the name on the screen, disappointment crashed over her. Jason, the man she had been entertaining on the side, the man she had envisioned herself exploring this new life with. She hesitated before answering. Hey, gorgeous, Jason's voice purred through the line. Haven't heard from you today. You all right? Lauren stared at the blank TV screen, her reflection barely visible in the darkened glass. She suddenly felt exhausted. Yeah, she said flatly. Well, fine, Jason chuckled. You'll sound fine. Rough night? She swallowed hard, the lump in her throat tightening. How was she supposed to explain that the very thing she had thought she wanted had been handed to her, but instead of feeling exhilarated, she felt hollow? That she had lost a man who had never once wavered in his love for her, and in doing so, had lost something deeper than she ever imagined? She closed her eyes, gripping the phone tightly. I'm just dealing with some things. Jason exhaled loudly. Well, don't stress, babe. Look, why don't you come over? We'll grab some drinks, have a little fun. Lauren's grip tightened around the phone. Drinks, fun. That was supposed to be what she wanted, wasn't it? A life without limits, a life where she could do whatever she pleased. And yet, when she pictured herself at Jason's place, sipping overpriced cocktails and pretending like everything was fine, all she felt was nothing. She suddenly realized Jason didn't care about her. Not really. He liked the idea of her, the thrill of sneaking around, the game of it all. He would never be Mark. He would never look at her the way Mark had, never know her the way Mark did. And worst of all, she had thrown Mark away like he was replaceable. A bitter laugh escaped her lips. Can't, she said quietly. Jason was silent for a moment. Can't? What do you mean? She took a deep breath, staring at the empty space on the floor where Mark's suitcases had once been. I don't think this is what I want anymore, Jason scoffed. You serious? After all that talk about freedom? Freedom. The word felt like an insult now. I gotta go, she muttered, hanging up before he could respond. She set the phone down, staring at it as if it held the answers. But there were no answers. No way to undo what she had done. The house was quiet. Too quiet. For the first time, she understood what she had truly lost. And it was too late to get it back.